Okay. So, what you're looking at here today, you're looking at the pay periods for certain jobs where they pay you at different times. This is something that a lot of people don't know. The more paychecks you get in a year is actually a better thing for us right now for tax purposes. I know that seems really weird. I'll give you a real example of that that affects me every year. And it's one of those things like I really don't like it because I have to like really budget, but it also affected me tax-wise. So what you're looking at here is the pay period. You could have a job that pays you weekly, where, you know, once a month. There's apps out there right now, which I do not recommend, that you can cash out your paycheck after a day of work. They advertise on like YouTube and Hulu, and you pick the streaming service, and there's always an advertisement that will advertise cash out when you worked your day, so you get cash now up to $100 or something like that. Those are the biggest scams in the world because they're charging you that amount of money that you're making per day when you're not making that money per day. Okay, what people do is they bankrupt themselves really quick because they take out too much money and you don't make that per month. What I mean by that, let me give you an idea. If I can find the names of the apps that do it, I'll let you know. There's so one of the apps allows you to go up to $100 cash out, and their thing is they show this advertisement with this big spinning wheel, and it's like, get paid the money you deserve. Why do you need to wait 2 weeks to get paid today, or something like that? That's like their coin, and it's like, you can take up to $100. Here's the thing, if you cashed out $100 today for working at your job, okay, cashed out today, and you worked, right? And you cashed out tomorrow $100, and you cashed out the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Here's the thing, that's assuming you make $500 a week. You may not make $500 a week because of tax purposes and insurances and other things. And what they're banking on is that you're going to take too much money out, and now you're going to be in the hole, and you're going to owe them money, and they're going to collect on it. And that's what they're banking on. This money that you're getting from them is taxable. You're going to get taxed twice for doing it. And so you're actually making it worse on yourself. So don't use those apps. Okay? Don't cash out. Wait your 2-week period. If you can't survive 2 weeks, number one, you're overspending, and number two, maybe you should get a credit card instead. Because a credit card, you can make a charge to it and pay it after 2 weeks, if you're really in that big of a pinch. The only scary thing about a credit card is that they'll charge you an enormous fee at the end of the month if you don't pay it off. So I always say if you have a credit card, pay it off instantly after you make some type of charge to it. That's the only sole purpose I have a credit card for. I charge gas, you know, normal stuff that I would normally get, groceries, and then I pay it off instantly before the end of the month because they can't charge me anything when there's a balance of zero on it. So, I'm probably the worst customer for the credit card. They probably hate me because I don't actually leave money on it. So, but what you're looking at here is the pay periods per week. Now, there's a big difference here, and I want you to see this. And I'm going to bring up a calendar here in a minute. I want to know the difference between these. Bi-weekly and semi-monthly. Why do they have two different words? What's the difference, if you think about it? Bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. A month, semi-monthly, is twice a month. What's the difference there? Can anyone come up with an example how these could actually be different? Bi-weekly every 2 weeks versus semi-monthly. How could that be different?
You get paid every half a month. It's different than every 2 weeks.
How? Why? Give me a solid example of that. How could that be different? Getting paid twice a month versus every 2 weeks in a month. There's one specific example I'm thinking of. I'm gonna pull up a calendar here. Now this calendar, sorry, it's gonna have like everything under the sun on it because it's got the school calendar on it, but I want you to see this. Perfect, that's a good example. September's a good example of it. Go full screen, all right. This is September, sorry, this has got every school thing on it. Blow this up, make it bigger. Sorry, it's got every calendar thing on it. All right, here's the idea. This is a perfect example of what's happening. So let's say you're on that bi-weekly. So what did bi-weekly mean just a little bit ago? Every 2 weeks. So bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. So let's say you get paid on the first of the month, the first Monday of the month, okay? So I get paid here, Labor Day. They deposit money in, right? Even though it's a holiday, it says it's the first of the month. Do you agree that's like the first Monday of this month of September, right? I get paid every 2 weeks, so I get a paycheck here, and then I get a paycheck here. How many paychecks should I just get in September? 3. I got 3 paychecks, as opposed to semi-monthly. Semi-monthly is twice a month. I only get paid 2 checks a month. So there's a big difference there. These are called super pay months if you're in that type of job. They also happen in July and June a lot, where you can have months where you have 3 actual weeks where you could get checks. So it's one of those things that you'd actually get more paychecks bi-weekly than you would semi-monthly. Okay? Because of these super months where you could have 3 weeks where you actually get paychecks. Okay, I know that's a silly example of it, but trust me, once you see that, it makes a big difference. All right, let me go back to your chart here. All right, so bi-weekly, semi-monthly, there is bi-weekly you get more checks a month. You get 2 more because of months that you have. There's 2 months in particular where you'd have 5 weeks. Bi-monthly, it's every 2 months. Quarterly is once every quarter, so it's once every 3 months. And then semi-annually is twice a year, and then annually is once a year. Okay, now here's the idea. I know that I told you earlier that I get an annual salary, right? Where I have this set pay, an annual pay that they pay me. But the idea is that when you do that, you actually get to pick how you want your paychecks to be split. The school, when I first started working here, they only offered one. They offered semi-monthly, okay? But when we merged with GHV, right? We merged with Garner, because I worked at Ventura before this. When we merged with Garner, they were just paid monthly. I get 1 check a month. So I have to really budget myself. Now, why that's a bad thing? I'm in a higher tax bracket. Because the check that comes in, they don't care how many checks I get in a year. What they do is they look at what that check is written for. And since it's a higher pay, since I get fewer checks a year, the check has a higher dollar amount, so I get a higher tax amount taxed on it. If I were to get paid twice a month, I would still get the same rough pay, but I'd be in a different tax bracket, and they would charge me less money in taxes. Because they're assuming that I'm making I'm making this large amount of money when I'm not. There's this weird sweet spot between it. Now, I want to give you a real life example of this, right? So, here's the idea. Okay, so here's your calendar. Okay, so you have January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Okay, so here's your calendar, okay? Okay. I only work 9 months out of the year, in theory, right? These are the months that they've designated that I work. So, I get a paycheck. I have not got paid, just mind you this, I have not got paid since the beginning of June. I have not received a paycheck from the school yet. My first paycheck will be on the 20th of September. Wrap your head around it. I haven't been paid since June 1st. Okay? Because my first paycheck will come in September, and they take my entire year's salary and they divvy it up into 9 months when I'm actually at school. The bad news about doing that is I'm in a crazy different tax bracket than if they were just to give me 12 checks a year. They give me 9 checks a year. So, and it's this weird thing. I actually experienced this. So what they've done this past year is this is the first time they've ever done this, is when June came around, okay? And I don't get paid for these 3 months, right? I don't get any checks. What they did to significantly to lower my tax bracket is in June, they gave me 3 separate checks in June. June 1st, June 2nd, June 3rd. They gave me 3 checks. Those checks were split evenly for these 3 months. But they gave me all at once, but they gave it in 3 separate days. And why they did that is because now what they effectively did is they split my 9 paychecks into 12 paychecks. And so it lowered my tax bracket, because the pay I was getting per check was significantly lower, so I'm in a different tax bracket. I'm taking home more in cash this year than last year because of the actual taxes that were involved. I'll get more in cash in hand. Okay, and you're probably thinking, well, aren't you gonna get taxed anyway? But it's different, because if you get bigger checks, they assume you're making more money than you actually are. And so I'm in a different tax bracket. It's a clever way of doing it so that you get better pay. But I'm not paid during these months. I got paid the beginning of June. I haven't seen paychecks since. Question?
What job would you get paid annually?
Annually, Steve Jobs, like a major CEO, they get paid once a year. Major CEOs of companies, like Tim Cook of Apple right now, because Steve Jobs obviously passed, but Tim Cook is the CEO of Apple. He gets 1 check a year, 1 annual check, and it's $1. That's what he gets paid. He gets paid $1 in fee. That's his CEO, like, that's his annual salary through Apple. And you're thinking, it can't be. But what they do is they invest all of his money that they pay him in stock. So they give him the idea of, like, he gets 1 paycheck a year, $1, literally $1 check, and then he'll receive what they call vested stocks that he can't, like, cash out of for a certain amount of years. So it's encouraging him to stick around. That's what they do. So his recent one that he just got, I think the beginning of September, like literally like 2 weeks ago, got $121 million worth of stock option. Because his third quarter for Apple was a huge quarter. They made certain profits, so they gave him a $121 million paycheck for 3 months. That's a lot of money. But here's the good news. Those CEOs of major companies like Bill Gates, Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, they've all made a pact. They're giving away their entire fortune to charity. So Tim Cook has already said that when he passes, every cent he has goes to charity. His wife, his kids won't get it. So every CEO has done that. Even Bill Gates. Bill Gates is worth like $96 billion. He'll donate every penny. So I think it's cool. It's a cool concept, right? You can't spend it.
Their families don't get anything?
No, they'll give them nothing. So yeah, isn't that weird? Yeah, they're getting 0. Shaquille O'Neal, right? Shaquille O'Neal, NBA basketball player, has done the same thing. His kids will not get a penny of his money. He's donating all to charity. It's just a cool concept, right? But yeah, they receive annual paychecks, right? Even though they're on like the most extreme end of pay, yeah, they receive an annual paycheck once a year. There's certain things, like if you're on like a board, a committee, you might only receive 1 paycheck a year. Like think about this, like on the board of directors for like a church, or the city here. If you're on the city council, you may only get paid once a year. So, all right, questions at all about these ideas? Now, why this is a big deal is because the tax bracket you fall in could be higher or lower depending on how much money you make a year. So, for instance, if you get paid, I'm just going to make up a number here. Let's say you get paid $1,500 in your next paycheck. You worked a lot of hours, you get $1,500. Versus if you were to get paid 3 separate checks of $500 each. right? The idea is that these 3 paychecks will actually get taxed less, depending on percent, than your $1,500 would, because the $1,500 check, if you were to receive that, would be in a different tax bracket. And so they would take out more taxes. So this might be, these tax brackets, like you might receive like 60% of the pay back in cash. Other stuff might go to federal and state and insurances. But this $1,500 check, you may receive only 52% of the check back in cash in hand, because it was in a different tax bracket. So you'd actually see significantly more money in those 3 separate checks. Just to prove the point. Now this might not blow your mind on this, but here's the idea, right? $500 times 60%. You're getting, on these paychecks, you're receiving $300 in cash when you walk out of the, when you actually deposit it. But on this top one, $1,500, you may only receive 50% back in cash. So here's the pay you'd receive on this top one. This is what you could cash in your checking account. You could cash the $780 check, versus if you receive these separate checks, you may receive $300. So this is actually added up to be $900 in cash, in hand, versus your $780. That was $120 difference because of tax, where you fell in the tax bracket. Now, why this is a big deal? Every presidency, every year, every cycle that they come up on elections changes the tax scale. Because if it's a Democrat versus a Republican, they charge people differently. Why it would make such a big difference is that this $1,500 check might put you in middle class territory. Well, during a Republican, during a Republican type of presidency like we're in now, the lower and middle class are taxed more. Because think about this. There's more middle and lower class in this society, so if they tax them more, you get more money out. There's less, upper class citizens. Versus a Democrat, which says we need to charge the rich more because they have more money. So and you could definitely see how they could balance each other out. There's some significant numbers we're gonna look at the end of this year where I actually throw real numbers at you. And we actually see how you can actually see the differences in pay, how they get the federal budget. That's something we're gonna look at the very end of the year. But this is a perfect example. You're actually seeing a real life example of why your taxes would be different. And you're seeing a real paycheck difference there. This is the cash you take home for a $1,500 check once a month versus 3 separate checks in a month at $300 each. You're seeing a real life difference there in terms of cash taken home. Taxes, you might get it back, but I'd rather have cash in hand now. I can make more money investing that money than just letting it sit and getting it back at tax time. All right, questions at all about our topics today? We're done today. Pretty easy.
So like you want more smaller checks?
You want more smaller checks because there's less tax. You can literally see you're going to get more cash in hand, and that's a better thing than waiting for tax time and getting cash back through taxes. Because you may not get money back in taxes. Depends on the year. And